Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Y'all ready for this?
All right, average Jocks fans, welcome back to another episode. As you can tell, I'm riding solo today. My co-host Joe is recovering, but before you know it, he'll be back on here cracking jokes. Today we have a really special guest, Mr. Gary Roberts. Thanks for coming on.
No problem, man. Nice to meet you, buddy.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well. I can see you got your home gym back there and you're drinking some water. You just get done working out, or?
It's a little late, at my age, working out late at night is a kind of waste of time. So but I did get my workout in today at the gym. So I got a little workout in earlier today, but I'm in the same as your partners. I'm rehabbing a torn bicep. So I tore my bicep about 6 weeks ago. So I'm in full rehab right now, and yeah, not a lot of fun. So I'm just I do a lot of spinning and try to do some exercise just to keep the fat off. So that's what I've been doing, trying to, yeah. I mean, I'm not the guy that's going to get out of shape, or there's a long list of people that can't wait for that to happen, right? So I refuse to let that happen at this point in my life. Anyways,
You're just letting these young guys know that if you had to strap them on, you can still give her.
yeah, for maybe half a period or so until I hurt myself, but. Yeah, I mean, some mornings I wake up and I think I can go back to play, but for the most, but for the majority of the mornings, I recognize I'm done, and that's okay. I moved on and enjoy what I'm doing today.
That's good. Well, I'll kind of slide into that then. Usually we start off where I ask some past stuff with your hockey career, but since we're already talking about working out and stuff like that, you were a player. And, you're a great player, played a lot of years, a lot of success. And now you're training some of these guys. What was that for you to be able to switch over to that role? Because a lot of guys that played as long as you did, they have a tough time going to coaching because, it's hard for them to kind of figure out the balance between being a player and a coach. So you're training these guys, and you train some pretty big names. So how was that for you to switch over to that?
Yeah, I would say at the end of my career, I was starting to do it. I had a place called Station 7 in downtown Toronto when I was a Toronto Maple Leaf. I opened a gym. I really obviously fell in love with the industry, strength and conditioning, the health and wellness industry. That saved my career. So obviously, as I got older and was able to make my comeback in the NHL when I was 30. It was pretty dear to my heart what strength and conditioning, the people that I met along the way and along the journey that helped me get back to play. I knew that was something I probably wanted to do when I was done playing, was, hopefully get in a situation where I could help young players avoid maybe some of the challenges that I did have throughout my career with injuries and rehabilitation through that process. So those experiences that I went through as a player, I basically took life after hockey and applied them to a new role, which was, training players and trying to get players really to understand the importance of the holistic approach to their sports performance. And, we're talking about food, we're talking about water, we're talking about rest, we're talking about, weight training, energy system training, and that whole, everything that encompasses being a National Hockey League player, there's a lot more to it than just what they do on the ice. And I was fortunate to learn a ton of that through the challenges that I had making my comeback. And I'm, thrilled today to be able to share it with younger players.
And to me, that's awesome because, like you said, for a guy that played, No, I'd say back in the day, which to me, like, it's not that back in the day. But again, like, I was born in '94, so you were playing before I was even born. But like for you to play back then and to train these guys to play now, like, how did you see the game? Like, when did you notice the game starting to develop? Like, where you had to, worry about your food, worry about your nutrition, the water intake. Like, was there a
Yeah.
drastic change for that?
Well, I would say when I made my comeback and I was traded to Carolina and I was 30 years old, I had gone through 18 months of rehab training. I knew I had to be bigger, faster, stronger in order to overcome the neck injuries that I had. I would say back then, and if you talk to those Carolina Hurricanes back then, I would say it was starting to really change at that point. Here we are over 20 years down the road. Uh, Obviously, playing at the end of my career with a player like Sidney Crosby and seeing the way that he was training, the way that he was preparing to play, how fit he was, how strong he was. Just to have a couple years watching him, and then my last year, of course, being in Tampa and playing with Steven Stamkos, who was this young and up and coming star. To see the skill level that he had and the speed that he had. So that's when I was, obviously at the end of my career going, okay, like the game is changing. I hate to compare the game 20 years ago till today. I just don't think it's a
Mhm.
fair comparison.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. It's just not it's not an
Yeah,
argument. It's not something you need to discuss.
and I
We,
wish
we
more
love,
people thought that way.
yeah, we love the game back then.
Yeah,
We loved the game. And I have so many dear friends and ex teammates that were amazing players. And now I train younger players that are amazing players at a different time. But I just
exactly.
don't think, just think that's what it is. It's nothing more than that. And I don't like to compare, well, is Wayne Gretzky better than, you know,
Connor McDavid.
correct. Like how can you
It's
even, yeah,
yeah,
it's not fair to compare. They're both superstars and will always be the greatest players to ever play,
exactly.
but at different times.
Yeah,
But to see the way that was evolving and to see the way the players were, I shouldn't say preparing because there's a lot of guys that play with that prepared amazing. So it's really tough when I try to explain it. But the skill and the commitment to working on individual skills became a much bigger part of the game. I mean, you see a guy like Sidney Crosby. We both had just one quick story. We both had ankle injuries, high ankle sprains, and I'm doing my rehab. I'm in the gym. I'm riding the bike. I can't do a lot. I look outside, and he's got this obstacle course in Mellon Arena set up on the cement, and he's got his cones and his sticks all lined up, and he's gone in to cut his stick to make sure it was the same height as it would be on the ice. Right? He's in
oh
his
my
running
god, wow.
shoes, got a high ankle sprain, and he's stick handling around this obstacle course. So I'm like, oh well, me, I go grab my stick, and I go out and I join him, and I'm going to do the stick handling course, right, that he's got going. I mean, I lasted like a couple minutes out there. My forearms were burning. I kept knocking over his obstacle course. I was wrecking the obstacle course, and he said, "Rob's." It's like, Rob's, get lost. You're wrecking my obstacle course. And I think he stick handled for like 45 minutes and never made a mistake, right? And I'm
Yeah,
sitting there watching this guy going like, this guy's on a different planet, right? Than I. I mean, I was 42, 41, 42 at that time, and he
yeah,
was in his early 20s. And that's when me at the end of my career going, holy crap, the game is changing. And players were more willing to do that stuff on their own. Like, to do that years ago, to have a player go out and stick handle for 45 minutes around an obstacle course when I was in my 20s or even 30s, that stuff just didn't happen. So that's when you saw the players took the nutrition and the training, they took that information and were applying it, but they were also working on individual skills to become better players. And here we are. The game is what it is today because of exactly those two things: lifestyle and skill development. And I would say players are taking the information, and the ones that really apply it are having the success like Connor McDavid, right?
yeah,
We did,
exactly.
like he eats, sleeps, lives hockey. Not like I'm sure players back then did too. But the information that's out there, the great information that's out there for players when it comes to recovery and preparation, if you're willing to put the time in, obviously it enhances your ability to perform and also have a chance at longevity.
And that's the thing too, like nowadays, like you got guys like I know like a big like I watch all sports, so like LeBron's a perfect example. Everyone's wondering how is this guy still playing at such a heavy level basketball? Well, the guy spends $1 million on self-care a year, whether if it's
Correct.
taking care of his feet, and people are kind of like, well, that's a little weird, but it's like no, he wants to play until he can't walk anymore. And like you
What?
said, that's
Yeah.
and it's crazy. And for you to
Well,
be 42, you said playing with Crosby at that
yeah,
time, did you have as a veteran, obviously, did you have like
yeah.
a chip on your shoulder, like if anyone looked at Crosby the wrong way, where you're like, hey, bud, not today?
Yeah, maybe why I had a couple incidents where that happened, but Sid was that kind of player where I think the biggest thing that amazed me about Sidney Crosby when I was an older guy is that you would go in the corner to help him, right? And he'd be in the corner, he'd be battling for a puck, and you'd think you had to get in and help him. And he'd actually look at me and say, Rob's like, go over there, take somebody with you, right? He used to he'd literally get away from me.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, no, you need help in here, man. He's like, no, I'm good. I'm good. And then and all of a sudden I take one guy away and all of a sudden he's in the corner with two guys and he still comes out with the puck. And I think that was really the skill and the strength that he had at that time and his edges and the way that he could get into his hip and stay low and battle for pucks. It was amazing how many times he came out of the corner with pucks when he had two guys on him. So there's little stuff like that happened during my time in Pittsburgh. I mean, Mark Recchi, we were great pals. We used to sit in the back of the plane. And I'll be honest, like we were veteran guys. And yes, I'm sure there's some players looked up to us as leaders. But I remember one night saying to him, like, this is the easiest job ever. Everybody just does what Sid's doing, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it was that impressive. Like we'd sit in the back of the plane and assistant coach would walk down the aisle and say, hey guys, optional practice tomorrow. And Mark Reck and I would just watch each other. We wouldn't say anything. And all of a sudden the coach goes back to the front of the plane and then you see all the guys and, looking at each other going, is Sid skating? Is Sid skating? Is Sid skating? And it just goes down the row, right? And everybody's like, someone that says from the front says, yeah, Sid's skating. And we're all like, oh crap, we all got to skate tomorrow. Because he didn't miss days,
Like
right?
no
And
days off, right? No
no
days off.
days off. So, but Mark Recchi and I didn't have to say that.
Yeah.
Everybody just watched. Everybody just watched what Sid was doing, and we had I got to say, like Pittsburgh, I was an older player, but we had such a great group of young players. Had so much respect for how hard they worked and how much they wanted to be together. I remember saying to Ray Shiro a long time ago, I said, "This is the best group of players and the closest group of players that I was part of." Since winning the Stanley Cup in Calgary in 1989.
Wow.
And hence why shortly after I left Pittsburgh, they won a couple Stanley Cups because they were such a really close group and were able to keep that nucleus together for a period of time.
And which nowadays I think it's so important. Like you see teams that are, like again, a lot of teams were buyers this year at the deadline. And like, some of these teams are getting together after the deadline and they're trying to win that cup, and it took, like you said, Pittsburgh a couple of years to find that gel. But, once
Yeah.
Malkin and, Kessel was there and,
Yeah.
like Marc-Andre Fleury, the prime of his game, like that's when they were I remember watching it. It was always them in Detroit. It didn't matter what happened. You always saw them battling it out. And to me, that was some, like growing up, I remember watching that as some of the best hockey I'd ever watched,
Yeah,
And
some of the most exciting. Yeah, at the end of my career, I can say that my time at Pittsburgh, I absolutely loved it. There's certain parts of your career that stand out more than others, and it's once again, is it fair to compare? Well, obviously, winning a Stanley Cup in Calgary was one of the greatest memories because you play a team sport for a reason to win a championship, and I was able to be part of that team. Being a Toronto Maple Leaf is something that was really dear to my heart, and being close to family every day. Having my parents down to every game, and those are memories for me. I still think about today. I still send my mom and dad down to the Leaf games. I share games with friends, and I send my parents down. And then being a Pittsburgh Penguin for a couple of years was like literally so exciting as a 40-year-old to be playing at the end of my career in a real. At the time, I would say Pittsburgh was like playing in Canada.
okay.
It was closest to being in a Canadian market. Tons of people from Toronto would even drive down. I had friends that would drive down to watch us play in Pittsburgh. It's a 5 hour drive down the street. So I really, really enjoyed my time, and the people of Pittsburgh treated me amazing. So I had really fond memories of Pittsburgh and playing with Sid, obviously early in his career and late in mine, and some of the veterans that were there. We had a really good team, and of course they've shown that over the years with the consistency that they've played with. And to see that was 2008,
Yeah.
2007, 2008. For me, that's 14 years later, 15 years later, and Letang's still playing, Crosby's still playing, Malkin's still playing, Jordan Stahl's still playing, Marc-Andre Fleury's still playing. I mean, these guys were, they were amazing young players, amazing human beings. I just remember how much fun all those guys were. And so amazing for me to sit back today and look at those players and still see them playing in the National Hockey League at such a high level. Real credit to those players because they've withstood a lot of wear and tear, and they're still going.
Yeah, which I love. Like, again, just to me, I remember being young and seeing Ovechkin and Crosby get drafted and think, oh, these guys are going to play forever. And now you think of it, Crosby's what, 36, 37? And you look at Ovechkin, same thing. Ovechkin's 37, and again, like they don't slow down. Like I don't think I see Sid ever, like you say, like he hits the ice and it's 100% until those feet come off the ice. And like you as a trainer, like training guys, did you notice guys that would come in and be like they're doing it because they know they can be good, like not know that they can be good, but like they're like, all right, I'm good at hockey, but I want to better myself, compared to the guys that come in, they're like, I want to be the best that there ever is. Like, is there a difference between training two different guys like that?
Yeah, and once again, it's not just Gary Roberts. Gary Roberts, an amazing team. I have 4 or 5 amazing strength coaches that work with that make up Gary Roberts' performance. Our sports holistic nutritionist, who's amazing. So our team that has worked with players now for over a decade, and I've been fortunate to have the same team together. Right, it's tough to keep.
Oh, that's wicked.
Yeah, so to have the same coaches each and every year, build relationships. This is how we have success, is by building relationships and gaining players' trust. And our group has been able to do that with our players over time. To compare individuals, obviously, when you look at a guy like Connor McDavid, who comes in every day and every year and wants to better himself, right? Some part of his game he wasn't happy with. That's what his focus is. And like I said, all the players, you can't accomplish everything in one summer, but let's work on 1 or 2 things that you want to improve as a player and as an athlete, and let's work on those. And then next year it'll be something else. But every year, Connor McDavid comes back and something wasn't 100% for him or the way he wanted it, and he works to improve it. I think other players that are many players are very similar. I mean, I just don't think you play in the National Hockey League anymore if you're not dedicated to your off season. Yeah. Like you have to be completely dedicated to your off season in order to keep up with the likes of Steve Stamkos and Connor McDavid and Chris Tanev and Brandon Tanev.
All these young guys, like
but all these guys they're just you need to be to play in the National Hockey League. You need to be ultra fit. Like to have success at a high level for a period of time, you need to be ultra fit and you need to be healthy. And that's really what my program, the Gary Roberts Performance, that's what we've tried to create each summer for the players, is a one-stop shop that they can come to. They get their food taken care of. They get their treatment. They get their training. They get their on ice. They get their speed work on the turf. And we encompass all those, elements, or whatever we call it, our pillars, right? Train, refuel, recover. For us, that is what we do each and every day. We fuel up, we train, we recover, and it's that cycle that creates a lifestyle for success. And that's really what we try to teach our players, and the ones that have been with us for almost a decade. It's pretty ingrained. They know what's coming, and they know what their summer looks like, and they're prepared to stay in one place and get better as a hockey player. And years ago we would travel. We'd go on trips, and you'd work out in hotel gyms, and you might start skating in August, right? Like, if I don't have the, that's what I mean. And then if I don't have the ice in by July 4th, guys are yelling at me going, hey, why is the ice not ready? Hey guys, it's
Yeah,
July 4th.
let's
But
relax here. Yeah.
yeah, but guys want to be on the ice now way more than they ever did. That would be one thing. Like we're trying to keep guys off the ice for all of June, unless you're in the Stanley Cup final.
Of
And
course.
then, but we'd like to keep guys off the ice for 4 to 6 weeks. And actually, let's get your body healthy. Let's get you balanced. Let's get you, you're ready to train hard, basically, right? That's
Yeah.
you don't just drop the season and then you start getting into heavy training. And there's a progression, and then of course, rest is a real important aspect of that.
And like, yeah, and like it's like to me, like the years go, like even from last year to this year, like, I've been watching more hockey. Obviously, with the podcast starting, I've been watching more hockey more often. But the game, it just keeps getting faster and faster every year. And I think to myself, there's no way it's going to get any faster. And I just find guys are stronger. But I've noticed that guys are a little bit more, injuries happen a lot more now. Like I not like major injuries, but like again, like guys will be out from day to day and lower body stuff like that. Like, do you think that guys overtrain sometimes and that's the problem, or do you just think it happens, you get hit weird? Like, is there such thing as, like,
Well,
to you, Gary Roberts, is there something, is there too much training?
there's a difference in tissue injuries and impact injuries,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So getting hit with a slap shot or getting hit in the boards awkwardly and separating your shoulder, or like impact. There's those kind of injuries that you're gonna get if you have a team that has a lot of tissue and pulled groins, hip flexors, a lot of strains, muscle strains. You would say, they're either getting undertreated,
Hmm.
so not enough treatment, right? Not enough recovery, or they're overtraining, right? So yes, I mean you could. I would argue that probably uh, young players aren't as willing to get on a table each and every day to get treatment.
Yeah.
As a younger player, also with teams that don't have quite enough staff in order to treat the players, uh, players aren't going to wait around for 3 or 4 hours to get treatment.
Hmm.
So I would argue that for the majority of those that those could be avoided, those tissue injuries, with more treatment, more stretching, more recovery. So do I think guys skate too much? 100%. We skate too much, right?
Yeah.
So we could skate less. We could do more shorter sessions in the gym, more mobility, more treatment away from the ice, to enhance recovery and to help, injury prevention. I would say the schedule, unfortunately, 82 games, 4 games a week.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of factors that go into managing that. You just don't walk in and give your guys a day off
Yeah.
because you need them to recover. Most coaches will probably look in sections, 5 game segments, and say, okay, this is our 5 games. I know in the strength performance world, that's what we do. We look at our schedule and we try to pick our days that we're going to work. Here's our work days. Here's our rest days. And we
Okay.
try to go through the schedule to pick those days out, no different than a coach would do over a 5 or 10 game segment. Like my strength coach that I work with in Seattle, Nate Brookerson, amazing guy, amazing human being, does a great job. He'll look, okay, I got a 3 week window here. We don't have a lot of travel. We don't have a lot of games. So we're going to hit quite a few workouts over those 3 weeks because we're going on the road for a big stretch after that, and we're not going to get a chance to do that. So that's how you kind of manage the schedule to make sure that the players are getting enough training and enough recovery. Because really, on the road trips, when you're playing every second night and you're traveling in between,
Yeah.
there's
That's
not a
tough.
lot of time to work out. So
Mhm.
you're getting quick flushes. You might be doing some cold therapy. You might be stretching, and you hope your nutrition is good on the road, so that helps you recover on the road. So you don't get a lot of gym time when you're traveling. It's really tough to do that, right?
Yeah.
But when you're home, I say when you're home, your home games are your work days. So that's, 41 home games a
Yeah.
year. Those have to be work days. So whatever you're going to get in the gym, whatever post game, or those are days that you got to work, because the 41 road games, all the opportunities to train away from the ice aren't always there,
Yeah, exactly. And
right?
coming back to, I know you got hurt and you got hurt. I can't remember exactly what your injury was, but you got hurt. You played a couple of years, but then you took, like you said before, you took that year off. Like
Yeah.
when you
So
took, yeah,
yeah. So I had 2 years where I missed 2.5, 3 years. I missed over 200 games I got hit from behind a long time ago by Bob Rouse in Maple Leaf Gardens.
okay,
Lost of feeling in my arms for a period of time. They took me to Wellesley Hospital. They cut the equipment off me, put me in a CAT scan. So what really the condition was, okay, we call it foraminal stenosis. So the narrowing spinal cord and the column, and I was getting like a lot of burners. Like if I got hit, I'd lose the feeling in my arms. So that was what
oh
I
wow,
went through that for a long period of time. Finally, this is in the late '80s that happened, but finally, and by 1994, I was wearing a horse collar. Couldn't cut, but basically got to a point where I couldn't cut my food. Right, and I was
wow,
playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs in 1994, and not able to cut my meal the night before Game 7 against the Vancouver Canucks. Thought I may, doctor said, "Hey, you've got some really badly damaged nerves. You'll probably heal over the summer." Well, little did we know, we lost the next night on a Pavel Bure overtime goal. That was the third overtime game in a row against Vancouver. They beat us in overtime, and I remember sitting on the bench and going, it was the only time in my career I would say I was happy I didn't have to go to the rink the next day, because I just couldn't defend myself anymore. I was getting punished out there. I couldn't fight back. Couldn't barely hold on to my stick. Could barely tie up my skates. So that's when I went away from the game, got my surgeries, had 2 surgeries, right and left side, to go into the back of my neck and try to drill enough of the spurs to let the nerves regenerate and pulsate. What they couldn't tell me was how long it was going to take for those nerves to regenerate. And it took me quite a while. I came back to played a short period of time, 40 games, I think. And ended up getting a really bad burner against Chicago one night near the end of the season. And that's when I finally, I knew the nerves hadn't healed, and I knew I wasn't going to continue to play. And I stopped playing that day, retired in the summer, and then went away from the game for 18 months and kind of thought I was done playing. And, like anything, of course, I love the game.
mm-hmm.
I don't think you realize how much you love something until you lose it, maybe.
Yeah,
I was at that stage in my life, 30 years old. And at 30 years old, I went back to the Saddle Dome after not training. It was April that this happened. I went to the NHL Awards in June and received the Bill Masterton Trophy,
yeah,
and retired that night at the NHL Awards. And then by November, my phone wasn't ringing. I was like sitting at home going, "Oh my gosh, I'm 30 years old. I can't work out. My neck was that bad. I could barely play 2 days of golf in a row." And I just made a decision. I'm like, I can't. Like, I went to the Saddle to watch a hockey game. Left the game halfway through and made a decision that I was going to do everything I could to get healthy. And so for the next year, basically, just studied nutrition. Found a lot of got some advice from some really great friends in the industry of health and wellness and strength and conditioning. Went on to really try to reinvent myself over the next year and make a comeback and play almost 12 years. So
yeah.
very,
Come back and play another 12 years, which is
yeah,
that's awesome. I love that. I knew
yeah,
I knew you had gotten hurt, but I didn't know you had taken a full season off.
yeah. And
Like,
I don't want to bore everybody with my life
no,
story
no,
because
no, no.
it's a
Hey,
very,
man, dude,
it's a
you're the
really,
ex NHLer here. Your stories are
yeah,
way
like,
better than my stories. So
well, it's a really long story.
for sure.
I tried to
No,
compress it. It's a really
yeah,
long story. A lot of challenges and a lot of stress along the way, but I think it really, for me, I wouldn't, everybody says, well, would you change it? Probably not, because it made me who I am today.
Yeah.
made me appreciate the game, made me appreciate the importance of wellness and taking care of your body. And I was down here somewhere, and then I found a way. And I remember when I retired the next time around at 43, just before my 43rd birthday, I said, okay, and what happened to me last time isn't happening to me this time. And
Yeah.
then I had the opportunity to start working with Steven Stamkos, who was my first client after playing with him my last year in Tampa. And he's still a client today, and it's hard to believe he was 18 and he's 33. So yeah, I mean, time has flown by, and they say as you get older, time flies by, and I
Yeah.
say that's what's happening to me right now. It's
Yeah, I
flying
mean,
by.
I just had a kid 8 months ago, and again,
Mhm.
he's already 8 months, and like to me, I feel like I blinked. I feel like me and my wife were just at the hospital last week, and now
Yeah,
he's 25 pounds, and he's not even a year old yet. The kid's just a
Ama-
machine,
amazing. Yeah, before you know it, you'll be in the gym training. We get him
Yeah,
on the
hey,
program.
that's okay. I already got friends trying to scout him to play football, and I still trying to convince my wife to let him play, but I don't know how it's not going good yet.
That's funny.
But
Amazing. Well,
yeah,
enjoy it. Enjoy it. You're right. It happens. It happens so fast. It
so
happens so
fast. It's
fast.
crazy. Thank you. I will. Yeah. And well, speaking of Steven Stamkos, another hard injury for someone to come back from. How was that? Like, was that the first time you'd ever seen something such a severe injury for you to help? I know obviously he went to you for obviously help him get back to normal. Like, was how like did you see kind of the feeling you had when you got such a bad injury? Did you kind of see that in Steven where he was like, oh, am I going to be the same? Am I going to be able to compete? Or was
Yeah.
it just drive to get back out there?
Well, yeah, you think about it, and when we talk about what injury are we talking about with Steve Stamkos, you think about the challenges that he's had, right? You think about his broken leg.
Mhm.
He had the meniscus injury. He had
Yes, I
the
forgot about
blood
the
clot.
meniscus. That's right.
He had the blood clot. Like, I
Yes.
mean, so we talk about everybody says, well, Steven Stamkos works out too hard, but you think about all those injuries he had. I would argue that they're not overtraining injuries.
Yeah.
They're impact injuries that really, overtraining had nothing to do with. But to see the success that he's having today is so rewarding for everybody that knows him. He's worked so hard. He went through that stretch where he was, debating it, through free agency, being a Toronto Maple Leaf, and decided to be a Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah.
Pretty good choice on his part at this point,
I
I would say.
I would agree 100%.
Yeah. But he was just a wonderful human, comes from an amazing family, obviously, his parents and wife and boys today. For me, I say like life after hockey, I don't necessarily cheer for teams, although I do work for an NHL team currently, but I cheer for individuals. And of course, we all cheer, my whole team that's been around Steven Stamkos for the last 13 years, 14 years. We love him, and we couldn't be more happy that he's having the success that he's having today in the NHL after dealing with those injuries that he dealt with. I mean,
Yeah, those
he
were
was,
pretty intense.
yeah,
Like,
pretty severe injuries, but you see how hard he worked, and the team that we have that helped him as far as the therapy. He's got amazing treatment by their therapist in Tampa too. I know they do a really great job down there when it comes to treating their players. So he's had a lot of good people on his side too that have been there for him to do the work to help him. But of course, he's done the work, right?
yeah.
He's the guy that's done the work. We've been the support team behind him. But you can't take anything away from he's put the time in, and he's been rewarded with an amazing career, and good on him.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, like I'm so happy for him because again, like those I totally forgot. I remember the leg and I remember the blood clot, but I forgot about the meniscus injury, which
Yeah.
can just put and I remember the blood was it the blood clot or the meniscus? I
Oh,
can't remember. He came out for one shift in the playoffs and he came down
yeah, well,
and
that was actually that was a stomach surgery he had
yeah,
too. So he had,
scored an
yeah.
absolute beautiful goal, gets off the
Yeah.
ice, didn't play the rest of the game. And
Hmm.
like to me, like again, like I just love to see that again. Canadian goes out there, gives his heart to the game, and I'm happy. I remember when he broke his leg, I was actually watching the game in college, in class, not paying attention, which I'm
Yeah.
not condoning to that, but and I remember seeing it, and he tried to get, if I do remember correctly, he tried to get
Yeah.
up
He sure did.
and
He sure did.
then he went back down, and I thought to myself, I said his leg is in shambles, and I thought, and the first thing I thought was, is this going to be the end of me watching Steven Stamkos?
Yeah.
Sounding selfish when I say it out loud now, but
Right.
obviously
Right.
more worried about him and his family and his life. But
Yeah.
just injuries like that are always they just terrify me to no end. I don't want with stuff with the mental health nowadays, and you see a guy get hurt, and now
Yeah.
it's the first thing you think of, right? Me being
Well,
a big Habs fan, I worried about Carey Price.
yeah.
You
Well, you
know,
see, and everybody I know as the public, we all see, everybody sees the money, everybody sees the glory.
yeah,
But maybe what people don't see is what the players go through on a daily basis. You know, first and foremost, you've got media, right, in your
yeah,
face every day. And I know that goes with the job.
no,
Totally
for sure,
understand that, and,
100%.
respect it. I was totally respect that part of it. Understand that's something you have to do as a pro, but the day to day management of injuries and wellness, and the game's over. Okay, the game's over. That's great. We won. What am I going to do now to give myself the best chance to feel good tomorrow night?
Yeah,
And then the next night. And it's just that ongoing battle mentally to make sure you're giving yourself a chance to play your best each and every night. And injuries are flat out hard on players. It's just the way it is. Mentally, I feel you're empathetic for those players that deal with it on a more regular basis. Chris Tanev is a player for me that we love. This guy, he's been with us forever. We talk about impact injuries and the battles that he's been through and the injuries he's been through. Have so much respect for how he seems to come out of each and every injury and play better. That's the sign really of not just a true pro, but a warrior. And I
yeah,
would call Chris Tanev a full out warrior to anybody, because I see each and every year how hard he works, and then I see all the injuries and the rehabilitation he's had to go through to continue to play at the level that he does. So that's where I say, for players today, yes, there's a lot of injuries, really, really hard on you mentally. And I always say, in the end, it does make you mentally tougher when you go
hmm
through those things. And then the next injury, yeah, it's going to be tough, but at least it gives you something to fall back on. Okay, I recovered from that injury. I'll be able to do it again, right? And that's what you kind of build on as a player that gets hurt often. But there's no doubt, I miss playing the game every day.
yeah,
I still say to people that I miss playing the game every day. I still try to play, other than I'm not playing now with my torn bicep, but I try to play a couple days a week with a group of guys. We have a great time. I still love to play the game. I don't miss how my body felt going into the rink some days when I could barely get out of bed in the morning,
yeah.
right after a real physical game or a playoff game, and you had to travel when the game's over, and you go to bed, you get up in the morning, and you're like, holy crap, I'm going to be able to pull it together to get my gear on today. So I don't miss that part of the game, but I dearly miss the competition and playing the game. It's given me everything I have in my life. I tell everybody, have nothing but respect for the game and the people in it, and so grateful that I had the opportunity to play in the National Hockey League.
And I love that positivity. That's awesome. I mean, for a guy who I got to play hockey growing up, I was able to play a few years of rep hockey, but even just missing playing, I play on Sundays and I have a great time,
Yeah,
but just that organized feel, even when I played high school hockey, that feel where, there's 100 people from your school just coming to watch you play,
yeah,
that feeling alone was the best. So I can't even
yeah.
imagine filling up the Saddle Dome while you guys win the Stanley Cup. I can't even understand what that's how was that having that place just packed when you guys
Yeah,
won?
yeah. Like, I mean, those are
And you were
memories.
young,
And
yeah,
I
you
was
were young
I
too.
was 23 years old at the time. That I won a Stanley Cup in Calgary, and I was part of an amazing group of guys, and I was a young guy on that team. Um, but I remember being on the blue line with my buddy Joe Noondike, and I think I said to him, "Well, that was easy. How many more of those can we win?" I probably jinxed myself that night, because he ended up going on to win a few more, and I didn't. So, but when I look back on it now, I'd say, "Oh my gosh, I should have appreciated it more," right?
Yeah,
Because you're 23 years old thinking you're going to do this a few times, and I ended up playing almost 20 more years and not winning another Stanley Cup. I'd say there's a lot of guys that probably have that same experience, and some guys never win one. So I'm grateful that I had that opportunity, but to play in Calgary for a decade, be part of that organization that were so patient to me early in my career when I wasn't ready to be an NHL player, and were patient and spent a lot of time with me and trying to get me to, to be fit enough to play and to understand what it was going to take to be a pro hockey player. I owe a lot to Cliff Fletcher and the ownership of the Calgary Flames, how I was treated as a young player, and the players that they had, the Lanny McDonalds of the world, right? Like Brad McCrimmon, who's no longer with us, my good friend Beast, who they were veteran players and were so great to me as a young player and taught me really. I always give my dad most credit for teaching me how to work, because my dad was a really hardworking guy. But to teach me how to be a pro hockey player, guys like Brad McCrimmon and Lanny McDonald, I owe so much gratitude towards them for what they did for me as a young player. And in return, I think another reason I probably do what I do today to try to help young players because of what it meant to me as a younger player to have a guy like Lanny over my ear when I wasn't doing something the right way.
Yeah, which is like, and I feel like nowadays, like a veteran presence, like for me, like a good example was when Patrick Marleau went to the Leafs, when all those young kids were just starting to pop off. Marner was playing great, Matthews and Nylander, and
Yeah,
Marleau came in, and all of a sudden that it just that there was like a switch where like the team just got tight, the team was close, and
yeah,
like their game was just, it was on. You'd watch the Leafs and you'd be like, man, like is someone lighting a fire under their ass every game? And then you
right.
realize like that one guy came in and was just like, hey guys, like look, we've got this. Now let's pick it up and keep it tight and like let's go. Like, and like with Marleau playing all those years in San Jose and all the
Yeah,
teams that he had, it's just like, yeah, like to me, I love a good veteran presence. Like to me, I love that. Like a team of young
yeah,
guys can do it, but you gotta
yeah,
have those guys that can.
yeah. And the thing today, I'd say your veteran player has to have a real impact. That's where it's changed a bit, right?
Yeah,
You could have a veteran player on the fourth line playing 8 minutes a night that still had a real impact on your dressing room. I would say that's harder today to have an older player that's not an impactful player each game to have that same voice in your dressing room. So that's maybe where it's changed a little bit. But I still see so much value in having good veteran players around that understand, what it's like to be a pro each and every day and how hard it is each and every day to prepare to play. And believe me, that just doesn't happen overnight for young players. Every young player deals with it. They get to the NHL and they're like, wow, this is easy. And then 30 games in, they're like, holy crap, this is really hard.
yeah,
Right. So we
yeah,
all go through it. We all go through it. They all go through it. Very few guys don't go through an NHL season and not look back and go, holy crap, that was hard. I got to do a lot more to prepare to play. That's why the preparation to play is so great.
yeah.
If you're not prepared to do the work in the off season, then those winters are going to get pretty long for you. You might get away with it for a few years while you're young, but it's going to catch up to you, and that's why your off season is so important to players today.
And like for a guy like Phil Kessel, who's played, I think he's at like just under 1,100 consecutive games. Like
Yeah,
to be able to come out day in and day out, and like, yeah, everyone says, oh, baseball guys play every day, blah blah. Yeah, I get that, but the just the impacts your body takes, even if you're playing 2 games a week, you, like you said, like you take that impact, and you, an hour later you're on a plane or you're on a train going back home,
yeah.
and then the next morning you're back at the rink. Like for a guy like Phil to just be out there every single game and just doing well. He plays the game great. Some people hate Phil Kessel. I love Phil Kessel.
Well, I mean, we had Phil. Phil is a really great person. We really we miss him. We haven't had him for a few years since COVID. Of course, it's been harder for him to come back. But we have so much fun in the gym with Phil Kessel, guys. Like he really is a good person. Yes, he likes to do what he's really good at.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, there's not too many guys that would be argue with how strong he is and how powerful he is. He didn't love cardio much, right? That was me yelling at him lots of, and he would joke, we would joke around, but I'll tell you what, you want to pull a sled for 30 yards, you want to sprint for 30 yards. There's not too many guys that did it like Phil Kessel.
Yeah.
He was a really fun guy to have part of our program. He won a couple Stanley Cups when he was with us. So,
Yep.
we're not taking all the credit for that, but we definitely would say that he put his time in those summers. And so we miss him. We miss him today. I have nothing but great things to say about Phil. He treated my staff with nothing but respect. We thoroughly enjoyed. We laughed every day that we were in the gym with Phil. We laughed and had a good time, and so did the players that were part of his group. So he's found a way. Hey, listen, we all wish we could do it, right? We could play that many games. It's amazing that he's done it,
Yeah.
and you can see everybody could say, well, he plays a certain style, allows him to do that, or he's. I don't care. I mean,
Doesn't
you've played in the
matter.
NHL. Yeah, you've played in the NHL for that many games consistently. Good on you. So all the power to Phil. He's had a great career. He's a great person, and it's nice to see him continuing to play.
And you say he never did cardio, but I'd say I always tell this to everybody. I say he hits the ice, you get him the puck in the first 30 seconds of his shift,
Yeah,
and he'll skate like a bat out of hell.
correct, for 30
Every
seconds.
time.
Yeah, every time,
Yeah, every
exactly
time.
right. And I would always be the guy saying, okay, well, let's make it 45 seconds this year, right? Let's make it 60 seconds. Like, and he would just yell at me, right? He would just yell at me, and but I'll tell you what, he's tons of fun. Good on him, and he's had an amazing career. So yeah, we're very happy for Phil.
When you were playing, Gary, you obviously took a few hits from a few strong guys. What was like the one time you took a hit from somebody and you thought to yourself, like, holy shit, this guy is an absolute brick wall?
Well, I mean, I tell him I played against a lot of tough guys, and thankfully I had Tim Hunter in Calgary that used to have to, he would fight all the real heavyweights, and I always, he used to always say to me, well, Rob's, I'll always have the toughest guy. I'll never have to fight the toughest guy, but you better be there to fight the second toughest guy. So that was, you think about early in my career, what I did to play. As a young player, you just do what you got to do to survive and be in the lineup every night, and that's what I had to do early in my career. Obviously, it became a lot more fun to score goals and not have to fight as much in my career. But I fought some pretty tough customers that were way tougher than I was, and I just was fortunate to hang in there. I think the hardest punch I took, no doubt about it, was Joey Kosher. He hit me one night after Brad McCrimmon, my good friend, said, my middle name was Roy. He used to call me Roy all the time, and he'd say, Roy, just one guy you just don't want to fight tonight. That's Joey Kosher. Don't fight Joey Kosher. And then I said, okay, got it, Beast. I won't fight Joey Kosher. And then I bumped into somebody along the wall, and before I knew it, my gloves were off. And I look up, and it's Joey Kosher, and I'm like, oh my gosh, right? And so I think, oh, okay, here we go. I throw a couple of quick lefts that he didn't even probably feel, and then he just kind of waits for me, and then he hits me with a right hand and literally breaks my helmet right here. Right, breaks my helmet here. I go down. He falls on top of me, and I had so much respect for Joey Kosher because he said, "Hey, Gary, good fight." And I thought, good fight. Like, basically, I wanted to say to him, thanks for not killing me. Right.
Yeah,
That's basically
yeah,
what I wanted to say to him. So he got up. I really respected him for that because he probably could have grabbed me and hit me 10 or 12 more times. Right. Because I was definitely dazed.
yeah.
And then after that, I went into the dressing room, and the trainer, Bobby Stewart at the time in Calgary, had to go get me another helmet, but he had to make it bigger to fit over this big egg that I had in my forehead. So I was just really happy Joey Kosher hit me in the forehead, and he didn't hit me at anywhere else in the face, or I still might be feeling it today.
Oh man, for
So
sure.
that was probably one of the toughest guys that I fought, and one of the fights that I would look back on and say I could have really got hurt in that fight. And I'm sure Brad McCrimmon, who's looking up there in heaven right now, looking down on me, going like, "You're an idiot, Rob. You should never have fought that guy." Right? He was way tougher than I was, and then the other story I would say is not a fighting story, of course, but the other toughest guy, the most I had a lot of respect for him as well, was Zdeno Chara. I played a lot of playoff games against him. Every time we played Ottawa, I was on the ice against him. he was one tough customer. He played the game as honest as can be. But I'll tell you what, when you tried to hit him, it was a waste of time for me to try to hit Zdeno Chara, right? Like I would run in and I think I'm going to lay this big hit on him. And, I was 213 pounds at the time. I was a pretty big guy.
Yeah,
He was 250, right? Like
insane.
he basically just did this to me, right? Like so I'd say he was one of the toughest guys just to play against. Not necessarily a tough guy because I never fought him, thankfully,
Yeah, thank
but
God. Yeah,
thankfully because he was tough too. He could fight, but he was just so hard to play against. You try to get up by him, and you think you got all this room. He pokes the puck away from you. You try to make a pass through his feet. He's got size 15s, right? You're always
yeah.
hitting his foot with the puck. And he was just like, truthfully, he was a pain in the ass to play against. He just was that guy that was always around you. You always think you have all this time, and all of a sudden this reach comes out, right? He's got a wingspan of 12 feet and his stick 7 feet, and before you know it, you get to the red line. You think he got all this time, and he pokes the puck away from you. So he was a really honest guy, great person. I know everybody that's come across him have nothing but respect for him, and I do too. But he was a really hard guy to play against, and I remember a lot of battles against him. Later on in my career, I would say Zdeno Chara was the hardest guy to play against for me.
Yeah, and like a guy talk about like working out and being in shape, that guy just
Correct.
again another absolute machine. Like it
Yeah.
didn't matter. He had the size, and a guy that big playing hockey at such a high level that he did, you'd think, oh, a couple of years, his knees are going to give out or whatever, and I found the years went on and it was just like the same thing. It's same Zdeno Chara every year in your
Yeah.
face. Didn't matter if he was 29 or when he 39, it didn't matter. Like
No.
like you said, you get on the ice and you knew you either gonna the puck was gonna hit his skate, he was gonna poke check you even though you were by him,
Yeah.
or if he got you in the corner, you weren't getting out with the puck.
Yeah. And you think about we talk about veteran leadership, and you
Yeah.
talk about, you look at Bergeron and you look at Chara, what they've done for the Boston Bruins, how much class they show. I don't think you can't find a more classy hockey player in my eyes than those guys that Boston have. So it's no surprise to me why Boston, consistently are a great team each year. It's because the personnel they've had over the last 15 years. They've had a pretty strong character, a lot of good people through that organization that I'm sure help players toe the rope.
And I won't keep you too much longer there, Gary, if it's almost been an hour. But we always ask this: what was your most memorable goal you scored? You scored and you thought, I'm never gonna forget this goal.
Yeah, I would say more recent for sure was triple overtime against the Ottawa Senators at the Air Canada Center for me.
Oh,
Yeah, so I still remember that goal. I still get, there's some point times in my career or in my life, I still get chills of moments in my career. Definitely the triple overtime goal against Ottawa. Ottawa to Toronto was such a rivalry. It's a
oh
different
yeah.
kind of talk about different time, different kind of rivalry than the Edmonton Calgary days that I played. But there's no doubt that those two stretches of years in my career, Calgary Edmonton and Toronto Ottawa, were some of the by far the fondest memories that stand out in my mind today. Are those memories of playing in those two big series.
Was there? I know that you played in your Canada teams and then you played in your American teams as well. And you did say that Pittsburgh was kind of like a Canadian team.
Yeah.
So take Pittsburgh out of it. Was there actually a big difference playing for a Canadian team than it was an American team?
Well, I would say, I played in the Southeast Division back then, right? So
Yeah.
I went to Carolina, and they were just moving from Hartford, and we played at a Greensboro, right? So, I was living in Raleigh, driving 80 miles down the road. Yes, I was making a comeback in the NHL. Calgary moved me to Carolina, so thankfully Jimmy Rutherford took a chance on me, and I went and played there. But there wasn't a lot of. It was a real education, a real difference in playing in Calgary. Obviously, going to play in Greensboro, North Carolina. And then, I came to Toronto for a period of time, but then I ended up playing in Florida. And, Sunrise, Florida at the time, I remember being out there thinking, gosh, does anybody know we're playing tonight? Like there's nobody in the
Wow.
stands. Just not a lot of passion. So I went from being a Toronto Maple Leaf to a Florida Panther. And
Yeah.
you never look back on it and say you should have done it. And that's your career, right? That's the decisions you make. But I definitely didn't enjoy my time there because there was just no passion for the game. In Toronto, they were climbing on my car when I was trying to get into the rink, right? So I go to Florida, and the gentleman, I forget my parking pass one day early in my time in Florida, and it was in my wife's car. And I said, "Hey, my pass is in my wife's car. We only have one pass. She came to the game last night." And I'm trying to give him the story. He said, "You play for the Panthers?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He says, "You're way too old to play for the Panthers, aren't you?"
What an
So
ass.
I just gone from being a Toronto Maple Leaf to I could, they're climbing on my car to get into the rink, and then I come to Florida and I can barely get into the arena because they think I'm too old to play for the Panthers. So it was just a totally different place to play hockey. And for me, I needed that. I needed to be on my toes every day. I needed the thrill of driving to the rink and knowing that I was in a hockey market. And obviously, Toronto was an amazing, it is to still today, an amazing place to play the game. And so thankful that I had that opportunity to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. But there's no doubt that, being a Canadian kid, and I would say playing in Toronto and playing in Calgary, and like I say, playing in Pittsburgh, which was as close to a Canadian city as you can get at that time, were my fondest places to play hockey for sure.
That's awesome. Well, Gary, like I said, I wasn't going to keep you much longer. I'm not sure if you
Yeah.
still got a bit of your workout left. I won't keep you.
Yeah, I'd say, well, not now, buddy. It's late at night, but I'll watch a
Yeah,
little hockey. Watch a little hockey tonight. Leafs are playing Jersey tonight, so we got 1-0 Leafs right now. So
that's
I'm
perfect.
not sure when you're going to air this, but
It's coming out Friday, but hopefully, like I said, I'm a Habs fan, so I'm not. I want my team to win, but at the same time, I want them to lose to get a good pick.
I hope I've answered enough of your questions, and
Absolutely.
wish everybody the best with you. Wish you the best with your family, and I'm sure we'll get an opportunity to talk again.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Gary. You have yourself a great night. Thanks for
All
coming
right.
on.
Okay. Thanks again, buddy.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
That's it. Both guys, 5 minutes each for fighting.
It's another segment of 5 minutes for fighting. This time we have Corey Payment back with Cornwall Comets tough guy, number 32, Pat Allard. Pat, Corey, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me, Joel.
All right. So, Pat, I know you had a lot of fans, and if anybody were to Google Pat Allard, one of the first pictures that comes up on Google is a picture of you coming out of penalty box with just your lower body equipment on, and it says Pat Allard's House of Pain.
Yep, that's funny.
So to say you had your own booster club is a bit of an understatement. The only other goons that I remember that had their own booster club was the Hanson brothers.
Yeah.
Would you?
Serge Roberge had a good one too.
Yeah, that's before my time. I don't remember that.
Oh God.
I'm 27, and so I don't really remember Serge Roberge.
Okay, well, Mario Roberge and Serge Roberge played in the American League, played in the NHL, tough as nails, and Mario, actually, they both played in the North American as well. Tough fuckers.
So did you guys play against these guys, or you guys watch them?
No, actually, I played against Mario. If you want a long story, it's very easy. When I went to the a Montreal Canadiens pre-camp, I did it with the Mario Roberge. So he took care of me while I was there. Then I did the big camp, and then I got cut like two games after getting my fucking ass kicked by Ian Sorokin. Holy fuck, that hurt. Anyways, so after that, I went to West Palm Beach to play some hockey there. believe it or not. It was called the Southern Hockey League. And I played against a guy that Corey knows called Ling Gates. Anybody know Ling Gates?
I've never heard of Lynn Gates, but the look on Corey's face says he knows Lynn Gates.
You don't know the missing link. Link Gates.
Yep, that's one hell of a crazy bastard.
And
Anyways,
what do you mean by crazy? Like what makes this guy crazy?
Okay, so we're on the road and he's he's in the same room as our second goalie, and the second goalie is on the phone with his girlfriend, and Gates didn't want him on the fucking phone. He told him 3 times. After the 3rd time, he took the phone out of his hand and beat it with it. So you gotta have something loose somewhere, but nice guy, I guess. He didn't last too long for that team. He was let go, and in I think 10 games later, we're playing against Huntsville, and a brawl breaks out. I go, let's have fun, and this guy grabs me, and the guy's like 6'6", but he's skinny, but he's tall, but he's older, and he's just shaking me. He says, "Do you know who I am?" I said, "No, I don't." "Do you know who I am?" I said, "No, I don't." And Dave Pierto, the D, comes and grabs him. He says, "Cooker, let him go." I'm like, Cooker? Remember that guy that fought Bob Probert for Vancouver? Toe to toe? That was him.
That was Bob Probert grabbed you.
You know, Bob Probert was the guy that the guy that grabbed me was the guy that fought Probert. Best fight ever.
Okay.
In Vancouver.
Anyway,
Vancouver. Greg Cox.
Yeah. So he says, "Cookie, let him go." I'm like, "What? Who the fuck is he?" And after the game, Pierto says, "He's the guy that fucking fought Probert twice." I said, "Oh shit, I almost died." So yeah, it was fun. And then after that year, I did pretty well there. And after that year, though, I came back and started the senior league and all up and up and up.
So how old were you when you played for the Comets? Because I was looking back at some of I have the cards from every player that played for the team. You looked like a young man playing in that seniors league compared to some of them. Like I look at Pascal Chiasson's card and he looks old as dirt. And then I see a young buck Paddlard.
Actually, I think, Corey, how old are you?
46.
46. I'm going to say around, I had quit hockey for 2 years, so I'd say around 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Corey, how old were you when you were playing in this?
19?
Yeah, 30. I think I was 29 the first year and then 30 the second year.
And how old did you have to be to play in this, or can whatever be eligible to play in a senior league?
There's no age. You had to be done junior. We weren't allowed to take.
That's right. That's right.
We weren't allowed to take 20-year-olds who could still play junior.
Okay.
But if you were done junior and you weren't going to school or playing for a university or whatever, and even if you were, our league would take you.
Yeah, there wasn't too many rules in that league.
No.
Did you see the beauty jersey though Pat pulled out? I can't find mine. I've looked all over. I'm convinced somebody stole it, but pulled out an original.
Oh yeah, that's perfect.
But the original,
Yeah.
Strap in the back, still bloody, all ripped to shits. Remember these?
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
I remember guys fighting me and said, "Fuck, man, I can't even grab you. I can't grab you." I said, "No shit."
those are the goalie jerseys when the arms are built built super wide. So just like the first, I guess, memory that I remember of Pat was, I think you guys were playing Les Aigles de Saint-Jean, and you come out of the penalty box, and this is your second fight of the game, so you're being tossed. And I don't know if you remember, but from where the penalty box was to get off the ice was in the corner.
Yeah.
So you're skating by, and I'm not sure what was said, but you end up charging the goaltender, David Plouffe.
Yeah. So just to correct you, it wasn't Saint Jean.
Sorry.
It was because he got drafted. He got traded from where he used to play. I can't remember. Soulange.
Okay.
Would that be?
Yeah, Saint Pauli.
That's it. Saint Polycarp. So what happened is that I fought this guy twice, and it was shit fights. And the owner of our team, which is not important, looked at me in disgust, saying, he just went like this, and I could just hear him say, Pat, Pat, Pat. That pissed me off. So I said, well, fuck you. So I started charging Plouffe, and I punched him in the face, and he falls down. I turn around and look at their bench. They're not coming off. They're letting their goalie get beat up. So I started wailing at the goalie. Finally, they jumped on. Big brawl. It was great. A week and a half later, the goalie that I beat got traded to us. Fuck.
Yeah, I remember that. And I'm like, how awkward. So he didn't say anything as you're skating by. This was solely because the owner was disapproving of your second fight.
Yeah, exactly. If you would have known our owner, you'd understand that. Yeah, that goes far.
Wow. Okay. Well, I definitely thought all these years that he had to have said something to set you off.
Oh God, no. Plouffe you ask Corey. Fantastic lad.
Yeah. Never words.
No.
There was two things Dan LaRock wanted. The W, which is 2 points, and then there better be some sort of show. So Pat was like one of the showmen. So he knew Dan giving him the head shake off the ice, that wasn't good enough. So
No.
The linesman made a mistake and let Pat skate by himself. First of all, that's the linesman's fault. I blame him.
Yeah, so do I. You know what? You're right.
So I don't remember. Was there any supplemental discipline for that?
No, there was no discipline in that league. I think you got
awesome.
suspended if you didn't fight.
That's awesome.